The invitation came on a dull Tuesday in March. It was printed on thick cream-colored card with gold letters, the kind of card that felt expensive just holding it. I read the names twice. Mr. and Mrs. Ryan Richardson. They requested the honor of my presence. That's how I found out my son was getting married. No phone call. No visit. Just a formal card, dropped in my mailbox like I was some distant cousin they barely knew. I set it down next to my unpaid bills and stared at it for a long time. My son, my only child, was getting married, and all I got was an announcement, not an invitation to be part of the journey. Ryan was 28 now, successful in tech, living in a fancy downtown loft. His girlfriend, Barbara, had been in the picture for 3 years. I'd only met her twice. Both times she scanned my apartment and my clothes with that careful, polite kind of judgment rich people are good at. She never said anything unkind, but she didn't have to. Her eyes did all the talking. The wedding was scheduled for June 15th, at the country club her family belonged to. I knew what that meant. It wasn't going to be a modest affair. Called Ryan that evening. He answered casually, like my call had interrupted something more important. "Oh hey Mom," he said like we spoke all the time. I told him I got the invitation and congratulated him. There was a short pause. "Yeah, she's great," he said. I offered to help with the wedding planning. Mentioned flowers, the cake, the mother-son dance. His voice sharpened instantly. "Mom, stop. We don't need help. Barbara's parents are handling everything." It wasn't about money, I told him. I just wanted to be involved. He cut me off again. "Look, just show up, okay? Wear something nice. But not. Conservative." That last part hit harder than I expected. I knew exactly what he meant. Not to me. I smiled through the ache in my chest and said, "Of course." When he hung up, I stared again at the invitation. At the bottom it read, "Black tie optional." I'd never owned anything close to black tie. My nicest dress was 5 years old, navy blue, and bought for his college graduation. Over the next 3 months I saved every penny I could. I skipped lunches, walked to work, cancelled my cable. By May I had enough. I bought a deep emerald green dress from a proper department store. It was simple, elegant, nothing flashy. I even got new shoes and had my hair styled. I wanted to walk into that country club and not feel like a stain on their perfect white linen. The morning of the wedding, I stood in front of the mirror, almost not recognizing myself. For the first time in years I looked polished. I imagined Ryan seeing me, maybe being proud. Maybe introducing me without shame. Maybe even smiling. I drove my old Honda Civic to the country club, freshly washed and still looking like it belonged in another neighborhood. Luxury cars lined the drive. BMWs, Teslas, spotless black sedans. Inside everything sparkled. The floors gleamed, the chandeliers caught the light just right, and the guests glided around in designer dresses and sharp tuxedos. I saw Ryan near the grand staircase, in a tuxedo that probably cost more than my monthly rent. He was laughing, head thrown back, surrounded by Barbara's family. She stood beside him in a gown that belonged on a magazine cover. I made my way toward him, heart thudding in my chest. When he saw me, his smile faltered, not with warmth but something closer to dread. "Mom," he said, voice flat. "You made it." I reached up, trying to fix his bow tie like I had so many times before. He stepped back just out of reach. "You look so handsome," I said. "Thanks," he replied. "You look nice." The pause before nice lasted just long enough to sting. Barbara's father extended his hand. "You must be Ryan's mother. Tom Whitmore." I smiled politely and introduced myself. He nodded, asked if I worked in insurance. "Data entry," I replied. But today, I added, I was just the proud mother of the groom. He nodded again and turned away, talking to Ryan about golf courses. I stood there, invisible, then quietly stepped aside. The ceremony itself was beautiful. Ryan never took his eyes off Barbara as she walked down the aisle. I watched him say his vows with the same soft voice he used as a child when he told me about his dreams. But those moments no longer belonged to me. I sat in the third row, behind rows of Barbara's family and Ryan's college friends. No one saved me a seat in the front. No one looked my way. After the ceremony, as the guests moved toward the reception hall, I lingered in the chapel, adjusting my dress, trying to hold myself together. I told myself I could get through the rest of the evening. I was his mother. I could handle it. I had no idea that the worst part of the day hadn't even started yet. The reception hall looked like it had been torn from a bridal magazine. White linen tablecloths, tall crystal centerpieces with floating candles, and silverware that probably needed polishing gloves. Each round table was arranged like its own small world, carefully selected guests grouped together in tidy social circles. I found my name on a small card at table 7, tucked near the kitchen doors, far away from the head table where Ryan and Barbara would sit. The others at my table were Barbara's distant relatives, an elderly aunt who couldn't hear well, a couple who looked overwhelmed in their rented suits and dresses, and a few empty seats that were never filled. Even the stragglers hadn't wanted to sit with us. I glanced toward the head table. Ryan sat at the center, framed by elegance and surrounded by laughter. Table 1 held the Whitmores and their closest friends. Table 2 had Ryan's college buddies and their wives. Table 3 was filled with Barbara's sorority sisters, all glowing and sleek. I watched as Ryan moved gracefully through the room, greeting every guest, pausing to shake hands, pose for pictures, share laughs. But he never came to my table. I told myself he was busy. I told myself he was saving me for last. I told myself whatever lie would keep the slow burn in my chest from becoming a fire. The cocktail hour dragged on. I sat smiling at Margaret, Barbara's great-aunt, who had kindly chosen to sit with me. She leaned over, whispering that the whole thing felt a little too polished, a little too cold. "Not really my kind of crowd," she said. I nodded, grateful for her company. "It's Ryan's special day," I replied, the line I had rehearsed in my head 100 times. That's what matters. Dinner finally began. The servers moved efficiently, serving the head table first, then making their way through the guests like a royal procession. Tables 1 through 6 received their plates, beautifully presented salmon, bright asparagus, roasted potatoes still steaming. Then they got to us. 1 plate, 2 plates, 3. Then nothing. The server returned, red-faced. "I'm so sorry," she said. "There was a mix-up in the kitchen. The rest of the meals will be out shortly." We waited. 10 minutes, then 20, then 30. Around us, guests were finishing their meals, raising glasses, laughing at toasts. Our table sat in awkward silence. When a second server finally arrived with a single plate, she placed it in front of me with an apologetic smile. The salmon was cold, the asparagus wilted, the potatoes stiff and greasy. It looked like something scraped from the bottom of a buffet tray. Margaret leaned over. "This is unacceptable," she whispered. I picked up my fork and smiled. "It's fine," I said. "I'm just happy to be here." But deep down I wasn't surprised. I was used to leftovers. Halfway through my cold meal I heard it. Ryan's voice, amplified just enough to carry across the room. He was standing, preparing to give his thank you speech. But before he addressed the guests, he looked in my direction. "Did you see?" he said, chuckling to Barbara. "They finally brought my mom her food. She's used to eating what life leaves behind, so she won't mind." Barbara laughed, light and sharp like glass breaking. So did the others around them. Friends, family, even some strangers. A wave of polite laughter moved through the room like a ripple. I set my fork down. My hands were steady, my face calm. But inside something fractured. Margaret's mouth hung open. "Did he just say?" "It's fine," I interrupted, though my voice was quieter now, as if saying it any louder would expose the lie. I listened as Ryan continued thanking everyone. His in-laws, his friends, the musicians, the florist. He never mentioned me. Not once. Not a word for the woman who had raised him alone, worked double shifts, skipped meals so he could have lunch money, drove him to college in a broken-down car and cried in the parking lot so he wouldn't see. When the applause died down, the dancing began. Ryan and Barbara moved across the floor like royalty. Perfect, poised, adored. Then came the parent dances. Barbara danced with her father, graceful and sentimental. Her mother danced with Ryan, swaying like they'd been practicing for weeks. I waited, unsure if my name would be called, if Ryan would look for me in the crowd, if there'd been a mistake. But the music kept playing, the guests kept clapping, and no one came. No one even turned to look. I stood quietly in the back of the room, watching my son laugh, watching him forget me completely. He had built a new life, one that had no room for the woman who made his old life possible. For the first time all evening, I wasn't confused. I wasn't hurt. I was clear. I walked to the coat check, collected my purse, and left without a single soul noticing. Not Ryan. Not Barbara. Not anyone. But as I reached the lobby, footsteps followed me. Mrs. Morris. It was Margaret, out of breath. "You're leaving." "I am." Without saying goodbye, I glanced back at the ballroom, still bright and buzzing. Ryan was at the bar now, his tie loose, champagne in his hand, surrounded by people who didn't know or care who I was. "He won't notice," I said quietly. Margaret touched my arm gently. "The way he spoke to you, that wasn't right." "No," I agreed. "It wasn't." Then I walked out into the night, not thinking about apologies or sympathy. I was thinking about the email I'd write when I got home, the one that would finally say everything I had never dared to say before. The drive home was silent. No music, no thoughts, just the steady hum of the tires and the rhythm of my own breathing. I reached my apartment just after midnight. The emerald dress came off carefully and was hung back in the closet like a memory I didn't want but couldn't throw away. I changed into jeans and a t-shirt, sat down at my small kitchen table, and opened my laptop. For the first time in years, I wasn't writing to beg or explain. I was writing to end something. The email didn't come from anger. It came from clarity. Every word I typed was calm, measured, and deliberate. I told Ryan that I was thankful for the clarity he had given me that night. His joke about me being used to leftovers was more than just cruel. It was honest. Showed me what he truly thought of me. I explained that he hadn't just made a mistake at the wedding. No, he had shown the world, and me, exactly where I stood in his life. I reminded him how I had spent years accepting scraps. His leftover time, leftover attention, leftover love. How I convinced myself that being a mother meant being grateful for whatever pieces he threw my way. But I realized I had taught him that I deserved those leftovers, simply by never asking for more. And that mistake was mine to fix. I told him that I was cutting off all financial support. The $500 I'd been depositing into his savings account every month. That wasn't a trust fund. That was me working overtime, skipping meals, living small so he could live big. I told him the life insurance policy naming him as the beneficiary would be cancelled. So would the emergency credit card he'd been using like a personal wallet for years. And then I told him the part one knew would land hardest. I was selling the house. The one he thought he'd inherit. The one he assumed would just be waiting for him, no matter how he treated me. I never told him I owned it outright. I didn't want him to count on an inheritance. I wanted him to succeed without a safety net. But that net had become a trap, for both of us. The house was worth around $340,000. I planned to sell it within 6 months and use the money to live my own life. For the first time since he was born. Travel, rest, rediscover the woman who had disappeared behind the role of mom. I told him that I didn't want apologies, and I wasn't trying to punish him. I wasn't asking for anything. I just wanted him to know. The bank of mom was permanently closed. I ended the email by saying that he would always be my son, but I would no longer be his safety net. I read it 3 times. I didn't change a word. At 3:47 a.m. I clicked send. Then I opened the bottle of wine I had been saving for a special occasion that never came, poured myself a glass, and started planning my new life. By Sunday afternoon, I had contacted a realtor. By Monday, I was speaking to a financial advisor. By Tuesday, I was researching extended stay apartments in cities I'd only seen in photos. And by the end of that week, I had scheduled vacation days. For the first time in 3 years. Ryan's reply came on Thursday morning, exactly as I expected. "Mom, what the hell is this email? Are you having a breakdown?" He rambled on about how I had misunderstood everything. That the wedding joke wasn't about me. That everyone was laughing. That I was being too sensitive. Then came the manipulation masked as concern. He said selling the house was insane. That it was his inheritance. That Dad would be disappointed. Barbara, he said, thought I might be having a midlife crisis, and even knew a therapist who specialized in women my age. He offered to help me set an appointment. I deleted the email without replying. Saturday brought another message, this one shorter and more aggressive. "Pick up your phone. We need to talk about the house before you do something stupid." I talked to a lawyer, but I had already changed my phone number on Friday. Sunday's message was different. Polish, apologetic, strategic. "I'm sorry for what I said at the wedding. I was drunk. I didn't mean to hurt you. Let's meet. I'll take you to dinner. We'll fix this." I forwarded it to my realtor with a note. "Please expedite the listing." The house went on the market Tuesday morning. By Thursday I had 3 showings and 2 offers. By the weekend I had accepted the highest $1,15,000 over asking. Cash deal. 30-day closing. Ryan's final email came that Sunday. "You win. I don't know what game you're playing, but congrats. You've ruined our relationship and embarrassed me in front of my new family. Don't contact me again." I printed it and filed it in a folder labeled evidence. Not for legal reasons. Just so I'd never forget who he really was when he thought I might stop paying his bills. The house closing was set for July 20th. By then, I had already paid the deposit for a furnished apartment in Savannah. I booked a month-long stay in Vermont for fall. For the first time in 30 years, I was making plans that had nothing to do with Ryan, nothing to do with anyone's approval but my own. The house sold on a warm Tuesday morning. I signed the papers in a sleek conference room that smelled like leather and expensive cologne. Strangers in suits handed me forms and congratulated me with practiced smiles. To them it was just another transaction. To me it was freedom. The final deposit totaled $355,000 after fees. I had never seen that much money in my account. I doubt Ryan ever imagined I had it. On the way home I drove past the house one last time. The new owners, a young couple with a toddler, had already moved in. The little boy was riding a plastic tricycle in the driveway, right where Ryan used to shoot hoops. They looked happy. I didn't feel sadness. I didn't feel nostalgia. Felt nothing. The house wasn't my home anymore. It was just a structure filled with someone else's dreams now. And that was okay. My new phone number had remained blissfully silent for 3 weeks. I walked the streets of Savannah without a schedule. I cooked simple meals and took evening walks along the river. I read books on park benches and sipped coffee from mismatched mugs. I was living a quiet, small life, and it was more peaceful than anything I'd ever known. Then one afternoon, as I was taping up the last box for my move to the new apartment, there was a knock on my door. I peered through the peephole. It was Barbara, perfect as ever. Designer blouse, flawless makeup, and an expression that said she wasn't here by choice. I opened the door but didn't step aside. "Catherine," she said in a tone that reminded me of a well-trained customer service rep. "May I come in? I don't think we have much to talk about. Please. This affects all of us." I moved, letting her in only because I was curious. Her eyes scanned the small space. Half-packed boxes, a clean kitchen counter, walls stripped bare. "Coffee?" I asked, already knowing she'd say yes. "That would be lovely." I handed her a cup of instant coffee in a chipped mug. She held it like it might burn her fingers. "I want you to know," she began. "I had no idea Ryan was financially dependent on you. He never mentioned the monthly deposits, or the credit card, or any of it." He nodded. I'm sure he didn't. When I married him, I thought he was financially stable, responsible, independent. And if you'd known, she hesitated, it would have changed things. I let the silence answer that for her. Now that I do know, she continued, we'd like to work something out. A repayment plan. Ryan's salary is good. And I've taken on more clients. We can manage. There's nothing to repay, I said calmly. They were gifts. Gifts I no longer offer. Barbara's polished voice cracked just slightly. You have to understand. Ryan's reputation at work is suffering. He had to borrow money from his boss last month. His credit took a hit when the card was cancelled. We even had to move in with my parents. It's been difficult. I'm sorry to hear that, I replied, though I wasn't sure I truly was. Barbara stared at me, her composure slowly peeling away. Honestly, Catherine, I don't think you're sorry at all. I think you're enjoying this. Thought about it. Was I? Well, I wasn't enjoying their struggle. But I wasn't feeling guilty either. I'm not responsible for his problems, I said. He's a grown man. He just never had to act like one because I cleaned up every mess before he knew it existed. Barbara set her coffee down with a sharp click. So this is, what? A lesson. Tough love. This is me stepping away. Letting him face the world without a cushion underneath. And the house? She asked, voice rising. That wasn't a consequence. That was cruel. The house was mine. Earned it. He assumed it would be his, but assumptions don't hold up in court. Barbara's mask finally cracked. What would it take, Catherine, for you to stop punishing him? I'm not punishing him. I'm just not saving him anymore. She stood abruptly, grabbing her purse. You're bitter, she said. Your life didn't turn out how you wanted, so you're taking it out on him because he's successful and happy. I opened the door, holding it for her. Ryan's success was built on a foundation I laid. Quietly, willingly. Now we'll see what he can build on his own. She left without another word. And I finished packing in peace. The next morning I loaded everything I owned into my car. 2 suitcases, a box of books, and my laptop, and drove toward Savannah. My new apartment was small but cozy, just 4 blocks from the river. For the first time in decades, I could afford it without stress. I took a part-time job at a little bookstore run by a woman named Rita. She hired me the same day I walked in. You look like someone who knows books are more than just paper, she said. For 3 months I lived quietly. I took cooking classes, learned to make paella, hiked parts of the Blue Ridge Parkway, watched the leaves change in Vermont. I read 37 books, learned basic Spanish. And I never once looked at my phone hoping for a call from my son. Then one Thursday afternoon, Rita handed me a note. Someone called for you, she said. He said he was your son. He sounded desperate. I stared at the slip of paper. He had found me. Somehow. Did he say what he wanted? Just that it was urgent. I nodded, folded the note, and placed it in my pocket. Then 3 hours later, I threw it in the trash. 2 days later, he showed up in person. I was helping a customer find a biography when I saw him standing near the entrance of the bookstore, scanning the shelves like he was looking for something he'd lost. His shoulders slumped, his shirt wrinkled, eyes tired. He looked older, thinner, worn in a way I hadn't seen before. The confident man from the wedding had disappeared, replaced by someone unsteady and searching. I finished with the customer, took a deep breath, and walked toward him. Mom, he said when our eyes met. His voice cracked slightly. Thank God. I've been trying to find you for weeks. I heard, I replied. What do you want? He looked around the small store, taking in my name tag, the shelves, the quiet space I now called mine. Can we talk somewhere private? We can talk here. Please. This is important. There's a coffee shop next door, he said. I'll wait. He nodded. I get off at 6. They close at 7. You'll have 1 hour. 6:01 I walked into the coffee shop. He was already at a corner table with 2 cups on the table. He'd ordered me a latte with extra foam, just the way I used to drink it back when we'd visit the mall together during his high school years. A small, calculated gesture meant to stir something. But I didn't touch the cup. "You look good," he said carefully. "Rested." I sat down. "What do you want, Ryan?" He inhaled deeply, like he was trying to steady himself. When he finally spoke, it was with a practiced tone, one he had probably rehearsed in the mirror. "I want to apologize. For everything. The wedding. The way I talked to you. The way I treated you all these years. I was wrong. And I'm sorry." I waited. I wanted to see if he had more than just regret. I wanted to hear if he had reflection. "I know I hurt you," he continued. "And I know just saying sorry doesn't undo it. But I'm hoping we can start over. Build something better." "Are you?" He blinked. "Yes." "Interesting timing for that revelation," I said. He hesitated. "What do you mean?" "I mean, it's curious that you discovered the value of family right around the same time your financial safety net disappeared. This isn't about money. Isn't it?" I leaned back and studied his face. "Barbara came to see me. She told me a lot. About the job, the rent, the credit card, the boss you borrowed money from, the honeymoon expenses. Should I go on?" He flushed. "Barbara had no right. So, you admit it's true. Everyone has problems, Mom. That doesn't mean I came here for money." "No," I asked, leaning in just slightly. "Then why are you here?" He looked down at his untouched coffee. The silence stretched until he finally whispered, "Because I miss you. Because I realize what I lost." I didn't let him stop there. "And what exactly did you lose?" "My mother. My family. The person who always believed in me, even when I didn't believe in myself." "You mean the person who always rescued you?" "That's not fair." "Isn't it?" "Because I've been thinking about our relationship too, Ryan. And I realized something. You never called just to talk. You never came to visit unless you needed something. You never included me in anything unless it benefited you somehow. So when you say you miss me, what do you really miss?" His hands trembled slightly as he lifted his cup and set it back down. "I miss having a mother who loved me." "I did love you," I said softly. "So much that I forgot to ask you to love me back." "I do love you." "No. You loved what I gave. My money. My time. My silence. You loved the safety net. You loved not having to think about how your choices affected me. But you never loved me as a person. Just as a function." He opened his mouth to argue, but I cut him off. I reached into my purse, took out my phone and opened my gallery. "Do you know what I've been doing the last 4 months?" He shook his head slowly. "I took a cooking class in Charleston. I learned to make paella from scratch. I hiked parts of the Blue Ridge Parkway in Asheville. I spent 2 weeks in Vermont watching the leaves change color. I've read 37 books, learned to play chess and started taking Spanish. I've laughed. I've eaten well. I've slept without worry." I turned the screen toward him, showing photos of me smiling, reading, walking, cooking, living. "For the first time in 30 years, Ryan, I've been living. For me." "But you could still do those things," he said quickly. "We could even do some of them together." "Could we? When was the last time you asked to do anything with me that wasn't tied to a favor?" He opened his mouth, but no words came. Just silence. "I'll wait," I said. Still nothing. "The truth is," I continued, "you didn't see me. You saw a service. Resource. And when I stopped providing that, you remembered I was a person, but only because you were desperate." "I was drunk," he whispered. "At the wedding. I didn't mean what I said." "You meant every word. Drunk people don't invent their thoughts. They just stop editing them." He was crying now. Silent tears trailing down his face. But I felt nothing. No urge to reach out. No instinct to comfort him. The part of me that would have done that was long gone. "What can I do?" he asked. "Tell me what I can do to fix this." "Nothing. There has to be something." I'm not angry enough to need to forgive you, I said. Forgiveness implies I'm still hurt. But I'm not. I'm free. I don't understand. I know. That's the problem. I stood up. He looked up at me like someone watching the last lifeboat pull away. Please, he said. Don't leave like this. I'm not leaving, Ryan. I left months ago. You just noticed. I turned, then paused at the door one last time. For what it's worth, I hope you find a way to be happy with the life you chose. But you'll have to learn how to do that without me. Outside, the Savannah evening was warm. I walked slowly through the quiet streets, past the lamplight and Spanish moss, past the sound of soft jazz from nearby patios. Somewhere behind me, Ryan was probably still sitting in that coffee shop, trying to understand what had just happened. And tomorrow, I would start planning my next adventure. Maybe Italy. Maybe Colorado. Maybe somewhere I'd never even thought about when I was too busy being someone's mother to be myself. The woman who had spent 30 years accepting leftovers was gone. In her place stood someone who had finally learned she deserved a seat at the table. Or better yet, a table of her own.